Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister, and I refer to his previous answer in relation to quarantine. Back in March, the Prime Minister announced that the capacity of the only national quarantine facility in Australia, at Howard Springs in the NT, would increase from 850 to 2,000 places by April-May. Well, it's now the 26th of May. Why hasn't the Prime Minister delivered on that announcement, putting Australians at risk?
The Minister for Health.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I'm delighted to address quarantine in Australia because, as many would be aware, in the last day there were over 500,000 cases worldwide of COVID-19. There were over 11,000 lives lost to COVID-19. And what we know in Australia is that our single most significant protection, our first ring of containment against this global influx and this global pandemic is our border protection and our quarantine system. The element that the Commonwealth has put in place as part of that is the National Resilience Centre. The transfer of responsibility is underway between the Commonwealth and the Northern Territory. I should note that the Northern Territory has actually requested that it take responsibility for the facility at Howard Springs, the opposite policy to that which is being proposed by the opposition, but that's okay. We're working directly with Chief Minister Gunner on that front. At this point, what we're seeing is that that capacity is being expanded. We have already brought home 2 flights recently from India, and we have seen a far lower rate of positivity. We had a 13% rate of positivity amongst arrivals from India. We then paused those flights. We put in place rapid antigen testing, PCR testing, which was overseen by Qantas, and what we have seen is that the result of that is that we have 2 changes in capacity, not just the number of beds that have increased, but the capacity of the system to deal with positive cases, because the second great limit is high levels of cases. And we saw significant opposition and criticism to our actions to prevent the influx of cases from India from those on the other side. What we have seen is the Leader of the Opposition playing with the idea of importing positive cases to Australia.
The Minister for Health will resume his seat. Minister for Health will resume his seat. I've now asked the Minister for Health to resume his seat for the 3rd time. The Minister for Health can resume his seat, full stop. I'm not going to be ignored. We'll go to the next question. I asked him 3 times to resume his seat. The member for Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and my question is to the Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction. Can the Minister inform the House how the Morrison Government is investing in technology to create jobs, support Australian industry and manufacturing and drive down our emissions? And is the Minister aware of any alternative policies?
The Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Robertson for her question. As someone who previously worked in the telecommunications sector, she knows how important new technology is to creating jobs, Mr Speaker, to creating jobs. And that includes in her electorate on the Central Coast and includes businesses like Star Scientific that we recently saw, world-beating technology from Australia using hydrogen in a world-beating way to produce heat and electricity, Mr Speaker, right there on the Central Coast. Now, our technology investment roadmap is all about driving $80 billion of combined public and private sector investment in clean technologies and low emissions technologies, Mr Speaker, 160,000 jobs over the coming decade, Mr Speaker, and ARENA is central to that plan. Central to that plan. Now, Mr Speaker, we've given ARENA an additional $1.4 billion of baseline
The members for Sydney
funding.
and McMahon. The Minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We've given ARENA another $1.4 billion of baseline funding. But
The
on
member
top
for
of that,
Corangamite can leave under Standing Order 94A. I mean, I can't make it any more clear.
on top of that, we've committed $192 million to additional programs, Mr Speaker, including investment in electric vehicle charging, Mr Speaker, hydrogen refuelling, microgrids for regional Australia, $20 million for new technologies for heavy vehicles, $47 million for energy efficiency in heavy industries, Mr Speaker, 1,400 jobs from those programs, Mr Speaker. And that new funding hasn't just been supported by ARENA, which it has been supported by, but 20 different organisations, including the Business Council of Australia, the AI Group, the National Farmers Federation, Climate Works, the Investor Group on climate change. But sadly, Mr Speaker, it hasn't been supported by the Labor Party. Not by the Labor Party, Mr Speaker, because yesterday the member for McMahon sought to outgreen the Greens, Mr Speaker, by opposing 1,400 jobs, Mr Speaker, but these are jobs for clean technologies. Now, Mr Speaker, just last week he opposed 1,800 new jobs in the Hunter Valley, Mr Speaker, and he has committed Labor to opposing investment in electric vehicle charging, regional renewable energy, Mr Speaker, and energy efficiency. And Mr Speaker, in a few short months, the member for McMahon has been able to achieve what it took 7 long years and 3 election losses for the member for Hindmarsh to achieve, and that is a deeply divided Labor Party, Mr Speaker, that is turning its back on the workers of Australia, Mr Speaker, turning its back on the workers of Australia.
The minister's time has concluded.